When Steve Hardison invited me to come, I was like, I just don't know if I'd be able to do it because at that time, my husband actually just recently lost his job. And I honestly have never been away from my children that long, that far in arms for me ever. So it was nice. So the experience alone was, it was hot. It was really.
Hi, Bina. Thanks for joining on this show, Moments with Masters. And before we dive into our conversation today, let me introduce you to our audience. Bina Bendale,
Yeah.
Master of Science in Nursing and nurse coach board certified, is a six-figure transformational business coach. She has three companies that she is serving already. She is the co-founder of the corporate Nurse Coach Academy, where she supports other nurse coaches develop their dream and teach them on how to get into organizational deals. Her mission is to get a nurse coach into every organization. She is a mom of three, 18 years of being in the ED. Two of her children have special needs, and one of her biggest passion is to help parents with special needs in the future to develop a center for parents and children with special needs in her community. Bina, welcome to this show, Moments with Masters, and you are the master of the day.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Fantastic. Bina, the first thing, thank you so much for joining us at the Ultimate Experience India. And
Mm.
you were one of the first people who reached out to me and said, Ranjan, I'm here. My whole team is here to help you. And
Yeah.
you in fact, you metamorphosed into my full team. Your entire team became my team there. And
Yeah, that's what we're there for.
yeah, and the moment your team jumped in, it was like, I was relieved a lot to see everybody doing so much, contributing there, as if they knew what has to be done there. And we really enjoyed your presence,
It
and
was
your
a
entire
fun.
team's contribution. It was a lot of fun. And yes, Bina. So first thing, I am
Mm.
actually curious to know, what's the story behind your decision to join us at the Ultimate Experience India, and your experience of the Ultimate Experience India.
So I was going back and forth for a while. And when Steve Hardison invited me to come, I was like, I just don't know if I'd be able to do it because at that time, my husband actually just recently lost his job. And I honestly have never been away from my children that long, that far, ever. So a lot of this mom guilt, hesitation of like all these different things transcribed. And actually, Brianna Riley, she's in my academy. One day she was just like, Bina, I bought my ticket. I just bought the ticket to the ultimate coach. I don't know how I'm going there. I don't know what I'm doing, but I just bought the ticket. And that kind of really pushed me over the edge. And at the exact same time, Steve Hardison calls me, Bina, I really want you to come to Mumbai. It'd be really blessed. So, kid you not, I went upstairs, spoke to my husband. He just got a brand new job. And he asked his boss, he's like, hey, I know this is really short notice, but is there any way, is it okay if my wife kind of goes? And that means, that means he's going to not be as present. His boss was like, yeah, have her go,
Mm.
tell her to go enjoy herself. And my husband was like, huh? And he goes, yeah, dude, like this is a once in a lifetime experience. Like, don't hold her back. And I bought my tickets. Like, I bought mine, and Brianna decided to go together. And then shortly after that, two of my other students decided to join. And then I opened it up. I said, hey, whoever else wants to come, come. And granted, I have not been to India in 17 years.
Mm.
So my dad passed away 18 years ago. We did my dad's 1 year puja in Mumbai, and I gave my blessings, and I was just like, I just don't think I'd ever come back. And this was transformational for me because I haven't seen my family in over 7 years. And when I arrived, they were there with open arms for me. So it was nice. So the experience alone was, it was hot. It was really, really hot. I was like, oh my God. We had to stay in the room. I remember everyone was like, go outside. We went for like 2 minutes and we're like, nope, we're going right back. But it was so beautiful. And your story on stage was so beautiful. And honestly, there was a group of men that were there that came specifically for me, and they found me in the crowd, and they're like, are you Bina? And I'm like, yeah, hi. And he was telling me how he was inspired by the book, how he was, he was so inspired with me, with my talking about my children with Steve Hardison. And I guess I posted several times just about going and my transformation about going. And he also then decided not only to pay for him, but for his entire team. I mean, that's $120 American. Like, and he's like, yeah, I paid for my entire team. All 8 of them were there. They were sitting like right behind us. And I've never felt so much love from so many random people in my life. I think that's the best way to explain it. Everybody was willing to help. Everybody was nice. Everybody was respectful. Everybody felt like Mr. Rogers. Everybody knew everybody's name.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was beautiful.
And Bina, I know that, you love your kids, and I love my kids, and I couldn't leave them behind, and I was coming to Mumbai, and I brought my kids along, and being
Yeah.
a single parent, it was important, and you had to leave your kids behind, and you had to come with your entire team, and how did the experience impact your personal life, your relationships? I would love to know.
Oh, honestly, it was a breath of fresh air. I'm not gonna lie. Like, one, it was nice for me as a mom or as a human being first to get away from mom life, married life, social life, family life, whatever it is that's here, right? And it was so nice to just break away and to just be able to serve in a way that I would want to be served without. And I love my children. I love them to death. But it's really hard when I'm trying to have a conversation. It's like, Mom, I'm hungry. And you comes up, Mom, I'm really hot. It's like you're not fully present. And I mean, I have a very unique ability to be able to be as present as I need to be, and my children are there just because of my children, the way that their needs are. But when I came home, it was like my daughter loved it. I had more time with my kids. My husband, something shifted in me when I went back to Mumbai. And I don't know how to explain it. It opened up some of my chantras. I was able to energetically feel way more entwined with people. And even my husband noticed. He's like, you're a lot more calmer. And I'm not a calm person. Let's be real. I'm pretty out there. I'm pretty out there. But my husband just told me, he says, you're more grounded. Something shifted in you when you went to Mumbai. And I said, I know. And I don't know how to explain it, but I'm way more open to just deeper conversations with people. And I listen more. And I think that alone with my kids and my husband has been a game changer. Instead of me yelling, it's just more of just sitting back and just letting them be and realizing that their personality is their personality. And I'm not here to change them. I'm just here to support them. And I think that's been the biggest key so far. And it's been fantastic since I've been home. So
it's the same here, Bina. we all understand that, relationships with the most important people in our life is the most important thing, the most significant thing. But at times we get so kind of hijacked by our own mind that, we get trapped in our own thinking. And this reminds me of the first 2 pages of The Ultimate Coach, where Steve Harrison says, asks, who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? And then he asks, who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? And that is the question that comes again and again. And this event, not this event, this entire experience, and they shifted so much in my life, in my relationships with my family, with my kids, with my daughter, and especially with my dad. You being a different son to my dad, being all in an all new relationship with my dad. This was a
Yeah.
new creation. And as you said, I couldn't we might not find the right words to describe how this happened, but this just happened. And Steve Harrison always said that, Ranjan, this is going to be a miracle because I am being a
Yeah.
miracle. And it truly was a miracle. And uh,
And it's so simple, right? Like that phrase is so simple. Yet I think what happens is people forget that they have to love themselves.
yes,
It has to start with you. It has to start with your inner circle. It has to start with your family, your friends, where it is that you believe that's in, that piece, that world of yours, and letting go of everybody else. And I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways is that, when you love yourself, when you're coming with the place of service, when you're coming from that deep listening, that real, just humble personality of like, who am I being in this moment? Right. And, there's always challenges in life. And I think this is where it really shines is that if you are confident within yourself, if you love yourself unconditionally, you know truly who you are. And that's where like that true document comes from, right? Like really memorizing it, really embracing it. And it's crazy because I wrote a document even prior to me meeting Steve Hardison. And I read it to him one day and he was like, whoa, this is powerful, right? And it's that moment where if you read it and you keep reading it and believe it, then that energy is what's going to move out and move towards other people. And that's the exchange that people want, not this like money exchange. Yeah, money exchange is great, but it's like the exchange of love has to come first. And I think that's where a lot of people always forget, like, who are you being in this moment? Not who are you being here? And I remember Steve Hardison was very clear when we went to Mumbai. Don't come here to get clients. Come
yes,
here to love, right? Come here to love. Come here to serve. Come here to listen. And I think that's what's the biggest, when people do that and they get to an area and they think about like, oh, there's 1,000 people here. Who am I going to get as a client? Right. Versus like, I'm here to listen and I'm just here to serve. Way more powerful. Way more powerful. And you're going to be remembered in a different light.
absolutely. And did you see, once we returned from Mumbai and throughout the experience, the shift in the levels of awareness, it's totally different. It's not about your practice. It's something different. I mean,
Yeah.
I can notice myself to be very honest, being your word is not that easy. It holds you accountable to every word that you speak out. And
Okay.
and you are fully aware when you are not being your word. It's not about feeling guilty, but I can see when I'm not being my word, and I am I can understand. It's like something that pulls you back to your authenticity, to your authentic self, and you cannot say a no to that, because you're listening from inside and you know who you're being in the moment, and you say something and you don't do that. A couple of days ago, I've been working hard to release the videos of the Ultimate Experience India as early as possible. But every date that I'm giving, and every thing that I'm saying, it didn't work out, and we are still working out. There was some difficulties with the technical glitches, and we are working on that. And I said that I'm going to release the video by this weekend, by this weekend, by this weekend. But I know every time I'm not able to do that, and sometimes when I don't go back and don't clean the mess, it's like, it's like there inside, it's telling me that you did not clean up the mess, you didn't be your word there. And it's not about even taking blame, but it's taking responsibility for what
Taking
I have
responsibility
spoken.
for what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the most powerful thing, that if that one thing can be created consciously, implemented and executed consciously, I think everything else falls into place, and everything else is just
Yeah.
almost ready for you. So, Bina, I'm reminded of this statement from Donald Miller. He says, "A story is a character who wants something and overcomes conflict to get it." So we are eager to know, what's your story, and where is Bina going?
Yeah, that is so I've always known I wanted to be a coach for a while. When my son was born, we didn't know he had a lot of medical issues comes in. So when we were diagnosed with being autistic and high challenging medical, I realized that my shift in ER honestly went from bedside, but then also I really gravitated towards the parents that were there having these difficult moments with their kids in the ER and really supporting them. And it really came light of like how good I am at it, because it's relatable to me. Like I can really empathize with what they're dealing with. Then I realized that there's no like real resources out there for parents. There's a lot of stuff out there for children. Granted, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there, but there's not a real place for parents of any type of diagnosis for their children, not necessarily to be autistic or ADHD. It can be any type of diagnosis, right? For them to feel vulnerable, for them to be able to state whatever they want to state without judgment, without community, without people telling them what to do versus them just wanting to do what they need to do, and really making their own decisions without like this, like, and I say this lovingly, like, you get the support of family, friends, but everybody wants to give advice. And sometimes it can be very overwhelming. It's very overwhelming because doctors are telling you something, nurses are telling you, your specialist, the mom, the dad, the sister, like sometimes it's just like letting go of the outside noise and really giving that family a true place of just soundboard. I don't even necessarily give advice. I just give a soundboard of what they're feeling, because people have to realize when parents are diagnosed with these types of diagnoses, the dream of your child of what they can be disappears. That's really hard for a lot of parents. That alone, knowing like in 10, 15, 20 years, like what is going to happen to my child versus and I'm not saying a normal typical child like becomes in like their dreams of it being a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, an engineer. The possibilities are there versus like when you get these harder diagnoses, it's kind of like, well, what's going to happen to them? If they can't make it out in the world, what are they going to do? Who's going to watch them? What's going to happen when I pass away as parents?
Yes.
Who's going to help with that? A lot of those insecurities, a lot of those fears kick in. And a lot of parents don't have a safe place to talk about that because they don't want to face it, because all they're still focused on is the medical aspect, right? The appointments, the struggles, the routine, that. So they haven't even had time to truly process long-term what's going to happen. And that's where a lot of my coaching comes in. And it goes back to being authentic, right? It goes back to boundaries. It's going back to releasing stigma. And fast forward, after I got my board certification, after I went to getting the nurse coaching license degree, it was a foundation for me of being on that platform, right? It was that foundation of like, all right, I really could do this. My dream is starting to come true. And then I realized there's a bigger gap that I can also not only help these parents with special needs, but what happened to me at bedside and my own HR experience was I kept getting labeled the naughty nurse, or I was labeled the nurse that always called in sick, or there's Bina, or that comes in. And here, especially in California, you only get 2 or 3 sick calls, and then that's it. You get written up. But you don't have a lot of time off. Well, someone like me has to have a lot of time off. I don't know what else to do. And so I wanted to help HR change a system where it's these parents or these whoever it is that's going through a difficult, because it's a difficult transition, right? Whether it's a parent with special needs, whether it's a family member, whether it's your own personal life, like you're just in a transition. I really want to now, that's kind of when I got the idea of like, well, why don't I help HR directors, give them the guidance to really support those staff so they're not labeled as being trouble, right? Or they're not labeled as low performers, because it's not necessarily they're not necessarily low performers. They're just having a lot to handle at home. So that's when I developed another program to help large companies really shift into like supporting those families that really need help during those hard times. And so that's how I got these large organizations. It's because I was able to explain my struggles as a mom, being with the special needs kids, how I always got called by HR. I swear to God, every 6 months I was in their office. Like, yep, hi, me again. My kids are always going to win. But what do you do? What do you do, right? You have to work here, especially here in the US. You have to work. You have to have 2 incomes here in the Bay Area. We have to have insurance. It's very expensive, but yet I need to be home with my kids when they're sick. So that pull is really, really hard on family members. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's very difficult in general. And that's now where my program lies for these large organizations with how do you help gap that to make your employees feel heard, feel valued, feel respected, and they don't feel like they're coming to HR and they're going to get ridiculed, right? They're going to come to HR knowing that there's true support for them. And that's where my whole team comes in, because I'm able to support them. And a lot of the times they don't need a lot of support. It's 2, 3, 4 weeks. They get their talk out. They get what they need. I'm able to give them resources. And then they're like, oh my God, Bina, thank you. This helps me. And then they're able to come to work. And, employees love it at the same time. So I was able to take my specialty of being parents with special needs, going into corporate world, seeing this big, large gap that needs to be present, and then going that. And I was the first nurse coach to travel into, corporate side. And then that's how the academy got born. So now I teach other nurse coaches. And now actually I can teach anybody, to be honest, how to go from having an idea to go and now selling that or serving that into a larger community, because it's all about service. And it comes in like, and I tell everybody, it's all about the service behind that. And how do you present yourself so that way they can't say no to you? And it's because you want to serve them. And that's now where the academy is coming, is that I teach you how to do all of that. So that's where I'm at now. So where am I in the future? I have no idea. It's like, it's like you want to do a lot. Like I want to serve. I truly, truly believe a nurse coach needs to be in every single organization. A nurse coach needs to be there, because it's like your own nurse that's able to help with medical, but they're also
Yes.
able to help with a lot of the mental, the psychosocial, the mental social that comes with it, and
Yes.
bridging that and making them feel happy. And it's just, I just want more. I want to help more nurses. I want to help more parents, and I want to help more people get into these large organizations to serve, because I know that's what's going to help transform healthcare, especially here in the United States.
Yes. In fact, everywhere. I still remember an
Yeah.
incident that happened, incident that happened last year, while I think I had declared the ultimate experience India, and I had to fly to Bangalore to give a talk to all HR leaders, and I was sitting right next to my boss, and we just landed in Bangalore, and we were on our way to the hotel, and I got a call from my home that my son is not well, and I still remember, he has been suffering from irritable bowel syndrome for a very long time, and it was diagnosed very late, and he had been through a tough phase, and I couldn't do anything. On the one side, I was on a call with my son, and I was calling all my colleagues to reach out to him, and to do something to help him. And beyond everything, I had to prepare for my talk, which I had to give, addressing all these HR leaders. And the most important thing that I noticed is that the boss sitting next to me, who watched me half an hour in this panic, didn't even ask me what happened. And there was nothing to give me an emotional support at that point of time, except for the talk that I had to deliver, and that's when I felt that there might be many such people who definitely
Yeah.
need emotional support, and they definitely need help and support during these phases. You're not just,
Yeah.
you are much beyond a piece of work. You are a human being, and
Mhm.
when you have a support, when you have a coach who supports you to transition through these phases, you're actually more productive, you're actually more contributive, and you come back with more love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is a classic example of, if the HR directors wasn't able to support you, it's like, hey, get nurse coach Bina on the call with you, letting you vent, letting you release all your fears that's coming up with the short-term goal for you during that moment, right? Because
Yes.
you're far away. At that
Yes.
moment is more of like, okay, is your son okay? Is there something comes in? Coaching you through that,
Yes.
getting you up on stage to present the best presentation you have to do in your life,
Yes.
right? And then coming off, not only supporting you with the high of the presentation, right?
Yes.
But now helping you going, okay, what's the next steps? Does this mean you need to leave right here, right now, and travel back home? Then that's the decision you need to make.
Yes.
But that's also the guilt, where a lot of people are like, oh, I need to stay because of, I have to do this, or I have to do whatever the situation is, right? But that's exactly what a nurse coach tells you. It's just, they guide you to help you not only in that physical moment of stress, because it's very stressful during those moments. You're just like, oh, okay, oh, all right, I'm not present, because you're not going to be present for that presentation.
Exactly.
If your children, and if your mind is there with your kids, and your kids are, and it doesn't even have to be children, it can be family members, friends, a dog,
Absolutely.
a cat,
Yes.
like an animal, anything that's physically bonded to you, right?
Yes. Yes.
Emotionally, you're not going to be present. You're not. So it's like, where nurse coaches come in is, we give you that sense of release right then and there, releasing your anxiety, teaching you grounding exercises, controlling, self-regulating that nervous system, regulating it, and then saying, Ranjan, you can do this. Go on stage, call me as soon as you're done, and let's figure out the next steps. Powerful.
Exactly. And imagine hundreds of employees needing that almost every day in one situation or the other. And you never know how that's impacting their performance, how they're impacting their relationships at work, how they're impacting their clarity. And overall, this actually is impacting the business
It does.
it does, and the ROI, you
Morale.
know.
Yeah, it impacts it so much because it's the overall morale, right? Could you
Yes,
imagine if someone was 10 minutes late to a meeting and being ridiculed because they're late, who comes in, blah, 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 but they don't know what just happened outside
yes,
to make them 10 minutes late. Now, there are some people that are just chronic laters. Okay, I get that. Okay. You're just chronically late for everything. I get that. We're not I'm not undermining that or comes in for certain things, but I'm talking about true crisis. I'm talking about a true crisis, right? So imagine if that one person was late to a meeting, maybe they had a child at home that was with special needs, was having a bad morning. Then they get into the car 10 minutes late, later than usual. And everybody knows here in the United States, if you get in the car 10 minutes later, especially in Mumbai too, traffic is different,
yes,
right? Traffic is different. 10 minutes in the car makes a huge difference sometimes.
yes,
And now the anxiety provoking of being, oh my God, we're in traffic. Now I get into this. Probably like all that anxiety builds in, right? Finally get to work. Now imagine you're in work, there's no parking because parking can be really difficult nowadays. You have to park way far down. You're running to work. Now you're feeling even more tired, more
yes,
exhausted. And now you're feeling like you're sweating and you're like, oh my God. Now you're
yes,
wondering how you smell and how you feel. And is my shirt wet? I mean, this is real. This is a real story that's happened. They go to work, they get down, and these everybody is like, oh my God, you're late, comes in. And a lot of those times, instead of people just going, hey, just take a couple minutes, go freshen up, come down, let me know, settled up. Whereas other people might be like, man, you're really late. Now that person has extra anxiety
mm,
of feeling the guilt of being late. And then that transforms the entire day. Whereas if that person did not feel heard in that moment of just like, hey, Ranjan, you're late today. Is everything okay? Giving that moment 5 minutes of space. That's all sometimes people need. Just take a breath, go relax, you're fine, and let's get working. Versus like, okay, what do you have? Where are you going? What is it? Like all these different things. And then that anxiety comes in because now the second time that happens or the third time that happens, now that person is now labeled as being late all the time. Right.
yes,
And that's where they're like, maybe they're the ones to lose their jobs. They're the ones to get written up. They're the ones that are what they would consider low performers,
yes,
correct?
yes,
Where all of that could have been avoided if maybe it was just a simple suggestion of maybe we move it 15 minutes later. If it's an 8:30 call, maybe we move it to 8:45.
yes,
And it's that type of compromise that people need. And sometimes it's a compromise, right? That's all. When we're at work, everything's a compromise. 95% of work issues are all around miscommunication.
yes,
95% of work issues are because of miscommunications. And it's all comes down to just, hey, Ranjan, are you okay today? It's that simple.
yes. Bina, I know I recall this from one of your Facebook posts where you wrote,
Mm.
things happen to you for a reason. People come in and out of your life for a reason. Do not let them break your courage and your faith. Use that to motivate you more and keep going. Keep keep your inner circle tight. What made you write this? And it is, I reflected a lot. And yes, a couple of times I remembered so many things of my life, and I said to myself, yes, everything happens for a reason. And how you interpret that reason, how it makes sense to you, is how you make meaning from what happened to
Yeah.
you. Maybe you don't know why it happened in the moment now, but maybe sometime in the future, it definitely makes sense. So I would love to listen from you about this.
This part is really difficult. So, as a CEO of your own company, as a CEO in general, right? Having a multi six figure business, sometimes we just have to make decisions that are really difficult. And it's hard because you think when you're in a journey, you think that some people are fully trustworthy. They have your best interest. They have, you know, I don't know. It's just like, I guess it's like all fun and games for them. I don't know how to explain it, right? And then the minute you make a decision where someone may or may not like that decision, because you always have to make a decision that's best for you, best for the company. That's what a CEO does. It's a hard job, but a lot of people, I guess I never truly understood it until like recent events in my own life. And I had to let people go. I had to make decisions on where my business is going to go, like what direction my business is going into, and having the people that are fully in alignment with what my mission is. And it's really difficult to make those hard decisions. It's really hard. And what's hard in those moments is that you don't understand the reflection until it's presented to you in front of you. And when I say keep your inner circle tight, sometimes it's like when you have an idea. I'm very creative. I'm very creative. I know I am energetically, spiritually, I can see a lot of things, right? And sometimes my visions, they come true. A lot of times my visions come true. And telling people sometimes what's going to happen, what's going to transform, what's going to go down, people like to take it and run with it and make it their own.
Yes.
Again, not an issue, not a problem. If you comes in, like, let me know, I can help you. I'll do it willingly to anyone. But it's the unwillingness or the unauthenticness behind it, I guess is the best word, is really challenging. And it's really challenging when like when something breaks and you comes in, instead of me now going, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to work, the imposter syndrome really kicks in, right? Now all I do is all these lessons that I'm learning, all these different scenarios that's happening is now just making me motivated. It's like I put that in the pit of my stomach and I'm just like, you know what? Lesson learned. We'll not do that again and move forward. And it's making me stronger and stronger and stronger as my company grows higher and higher. And it's like, they say when you have a million problems, it's like a million and one. You have $1 million, but you have 1,000,001 problems.
Yeah.
I'm learning that. I'm learning that. So it's and you can't, and it's not like telling people your secrets, because there is no secret. Have a conversation, you engage, you deliver. That's simple. It's really that it. That's it. But I just don't understand how people just like they try to reuse it, or they try, like, and Steve Hardison always says this, like with his model, you can't be Steve Hardison, right? Steve Hardison's always under construction. And if you try to be Steve Hardison, you're going to fall flat on your face, which is true. But I think that's true for anyone. I can't be Ranjan.
Yes.
Because if I try to be Ranjan, it's not going to work for me. Someone can't be Bina Bendale because it's not going to work for them. I can't be, Unkish. I can't be Alok. I can't be, Cordelia. I can't be any of these people. But what I can do is I can learn from them. And I think that's the biggest difference, is when you're in a place of learning humbly and you're taking that internally and using it, is way different than learning, and then trying to replicate it. Because that's where the biggest difference lies. And that's kind of where that post came from, is just, understanding that people are their own people and respecting them for who they are, and learning in a way that it's going to serve them and to make them better, not to use it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, yeah, lessons learned. I can tell you that. A lot of lessons learned. And now it's just like, I'm just learning that, people, they're great people and I love them all to death and they all are wonderful. Just sometimes business is a very, very lonely path. And I think a lot of people have to understand that.
Yeah.
Walking the CEO line can be very, very lonely at times. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just,
Yes.
that's the inner circle part. Like,
Yeah.
that's the inner circle that I talk about. Like, I only have a handful of people who I really can be around and enjoy and be my complete self. And then there's people who I can honestly talk about my business and G's and certain things. And I'm okay with that. But it took me a while to be okay with that.
And as a leader, what kind of an impact has your experience with coaching? How has that impacted you as a business leader?
Oh, it's huge. It's the act of listening, right? As a CEO, as a leader, as any of like humble person, the act of listening. Giving advice when someone asks for it versus voluntarily give advice. I think that's the biggest thing. As a leader, as you grow, people, when you learn new things, when, people do different stuff, everybody wants to know how you did it. Like a lot of people always to this day still, Bina, how did you get 3 businesses under your name? How did you do this? But it's like, well, I went and had a conversation. Yeah, but how did that occur? Right? Versus like just generally having a conversation and then someone asking you different than just being humble and listening. And a lot of the times when people ask me how, I always put back the question saying, well, how do you connect? How do you serve? How do you love? Because the minute you understand yourself, it goes back to loving yourself, is when you're able to truly connect with other people in the world. And that's all it comes with. A lot of these businesses, everything comes with that connection. There's no secret. It's just, you have to love yourself. You have to be confident within yourself to spread your love for other people to feel it, to have that connection. And that's the biggest thing now as a leader, just really showing people that in my own practice, in my own world, showing the love, feeling the love, giving people, if they ask me a question, I will answer honestly. And that's the biggest difference, I think, now. I don't try to serve you. I don't try to sell you something. If you call me, like we've spoken, I don't sit there and say, hey, Ranjan, come on, you got to be in my. It's like, no, it's how do we serve? How do I help? How do we help each other grow? And that's like the biggest thing as a leader learning up is like, learn to serve. And that's where Steve Hardison always talks about, right? Come from the power of serve, power of love. And that's what's going to grow your business.
And that comes back to the question, not of how. It's about, again, it comes back to who you are being, who. Yes. And when you focus on consciously creating the who, the how is going to be a part of your journey. And the how can change from time to time, but the who is where you need to focus on, what you need to focus on. And the how has coaching helped you in becoming that who, the Bina that is creating these results? both in your personal life as well as professional life?
Because it forced me to face my demons. It forced me to be uncomfortable. It forced me to really truly understand what my triggers are in the world, like what triggers me. So I can be the best person on camera, in person, on a stage, in a company. Because if I don't know any of that and say, I don't know, being late is a big trigger for me, right? It gives me anxiety. So it's like, I know that. So I always arrive 15 minutes early everywhere, just because that's just my personality. And knowing that going in, that I know I have that grounding mechanism, but if people don't realize that that's what triggers them, then it's just, how do you coach? How are you able to help other people in that moment? So it goes back to the same thing of knowing you and what you're capable of. And knowing that, like, I'm really uncomfortable in large crowds. It's a lot of people don't believe it, but I really am really shy. Like, it's like, it's like, oh my God, I gotta do what? You want me to do what? But it's like, I have to take that 5 or 10 minutes for myself, to ground myself, to just kind of think up, to relax, to cut one in, to go back up and do whatever I need to do. But that's how I do it, is because I have to know what's best for me, and reminding myself I'm not being selfish at all if I have to take 5 or 10 minutes for myself. I just would, like, say in Mumbai, if you said, Bina, I want you to talk in 15 minutes, I honestly would tell you, you need to give me 10 minutes before I get on stage. I need to go do a grounding exercise. I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I need to know kind of what you want me to talk about. Because if you want me to wing it, I can wing it, but I don't know what comes out of my mouth at that point. But it's just like, knowing those expectations, those agreements, is really, really strong. And that's the biggest thing I've learned in my own life, is that making those strong agreements, whether it's with my clients, whether it's with my company. I do strong agreements now with my children. I do strong agreements with my husband, so that the expectations of people diminish. So I don't expect a lot from my husband. I expect a lot of my husband, but if we agree, like, we're not going to worry about the house being clean for this next day and a half, because we both have deadlines, right? Because we agreed on that. Then I'm not going to walk into my house with the expectation of my house being fully clean, because that's going to drive me crazy, right? But it's like, we both agreed on that. So it's like, okay, I can't get mad at him, or I can't get angry, because we agreed on this already. Not saying the house comes down to fire, but we agreed upon, we're just not going to focus. We just have to get these deadlines out, so our children become priority. Then we don't have to worry about laundry, or I don't know, making the beds and things that you normally would do. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned within myself. Strong agreements, whether it's any type of friendship, whether it's a friendship, and me and you've had strong agreements with each other, right? And that's the clarity of, like, you know what? This is sacred. This conversation's sacred. This is what comes from me. And can we agree to keep these conversations sacred? Still to this day, I hold that to my word. That's the biggest part of coaching, is I've learned that as a coach, if I give my word of things being confidential, sacred, whatever it is, the agreement, I'm going to call you every day at 9:00. I'm going to call you every day at 9:00. If that was the agreement was made. Because that's what makes people feel valued. That's what makes people feel heard. And I would want someone to do it for me. If someone told me they're going to call me every day at 4:00 to see how am I doing, I'm going to look forward to that call. And then if it doesn't occur, then it's kind of like, oh, well, see, there's another person that doesn't care for me. Or see, I told you that's just how it's going to be. So agreements is key to life, key to communication. That's the
And
number one thing I
coaching,
do now with coaching.
yes,
Yeah, because you
yeah,
have to.
yes. And coaching is not just a profession; it's a way of being. It's a way of life.
Mhm.
And this takes me back to what Steve Harrison, the chapter on the birth of coaching. It
Mhm.
says in the leadership principles I learned from Steve, where he's modern, right? No organization will rise above the level of its leader. My company is a reflection of me. And it comes back to you as a person. Again, it comes back to the question, who, and who.
Who are you?
Who are you? Who are you being? And when you say who are you, when you come back to this question, who are you being, you get the right to be, you get the choice to be, and you get an opportunity to consciously create who you are being and who you would need to be in order to create the results that you want to create. And when you talk about love and learning, the three L's, the love, the learning, and the leadership, these are the three L's that help us create the results, that create the impact that we want to create on lives, on people. And coaching is a form. I see coaching as the most ancient way of leadership, and
Yeah.
the best form of service. And imagine when
I love what you
every
said. What was the three L's again? I
love
love that.
love, learning, and leadership.
And it's so true. The three L's are so powerful.
Yes,
So powerful.
yes.
Because it's
And
true. There's nothing
yes,
else you can do.
and all the three things are inside out: love inside out, learning inside out, leadership inside out. And when that happens, coaching happens in every connection. And I that's what I do with my clients. I help them create their lives through three phases of clarity, connection, and creation, which all move through love, learning, and leadership. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Bina. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your life, your wisdom, and your journey with us. Thanks for being with us
Thank
on
you.
this show, Moments with Masters.
Thank you. The pleasure's mine. The pleasure's mine. I appreciate you even having me here.
Thank you so much, Bina. Had a great conversation and a great learning. Love you. Bye bye.
Bye.